Hello space fans, welcome to Space Command. My name is Brian and today we're going to be talking about spacesuits. The reason we're talking about spacesuits today is yesterday two players in the space race, this new space race, had press conferences and they unveiled new spacesuits for their astronauts. That was Virgin Galactic, operating out of Spaceport America in New Mexico, and NASA. So that's pretty exciting. With those two press conferences, I thought we would do an entire broadcast just about spacesuits. So we're going to cover those. All right? Awesome. Well, first, I just want to mention it's been 3,010 days since the United States has been able to launch American astronauts from American soil on American spacecraft into space. It's been since 2011 when the last space shuttle Atlantis landed for its last time and was retired and is now on display at the Kennedy Space Center. 3,010 days. Well, space weather. Let's cover a little space weather before we get started. Today on Mars, it is a balmy negative 22 degrees Fahrenheit. And the low is negative 113 degrees Fahrenheit. That's actually a little warmer than the last video or broadcast that we shot. So that's great. Today is Sol number 2558 on Mars. The weather is sunny. The sun will rise at 5:52 a.m. and the sun's going to set at 5:35 p.m. The UV index, the ultraviolet index today on Mars is moderate, so that's a little worse than the last broadcast that we brought you. So definitely going to need your sunglasses and a coat. Definitely going to need a coat. Negative 22 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into it. These new spacesuits. Virgin Galactic, a suborbital space tourism company out of New Mexico, unveiled their new spacesuits. They have a space plane called Spaceship 2, and it's carried by a mothership, White Knight 2, up to about 50,000 feet. It releases the Spaceship 2, and then the Spaceship 2 engages its rocket engine and rockets up into space, the edge of space, breaks the Kármán line. Passengers float around astronauts float around for a little bit, and then it glides back to the surface and lands. About a 20-minute trip. So that's Virgin Galactic, and they are partnering with Under Armour, and they unveiled these spacesuits yesterday. It is for the suborbital Spaceship 2 space tourists. $250,000 will buy you a ticket on that trip. And Under Armour announced yesterday that it had teamed up with Virgin Galactic to develop these spacesuits for Richard Branson's suborbital space tourism company. And Virgin Galactic stated that the custom spacesuits were the first to be developed for the space tourism industry and private astronauts. The line of spacewear includes a spacesuit, custom footwear, a training suit, and a special edition jacket. We covered Virgin Galactic's suborbital space plane, Spaceship 2, in a previous video, so you might check that out. The spacesuits will come with name tags and flags attached. The collaboration on design included doctors, pilots, stylists, astronaut trainers, and more. So the spacesuits are going to include Under Armour's cold gear reactor lining that allows astronauts to stay warm. The spacesuit debut was in New York, and it was at an indoor skydiving facility. They had dancers and acrobats putting on a circus-like display modeling the spacesuits. Helmets were visible on the dancing acrobats. However, they weren't addressed by the debut. Other details not addressed were whether the suits had in-suit communication systems, whether the suits had an in-suit life support system, and it's unknown whether the suits were pressurized or not. So that is the deal with that. I'm going to put up a picture here of the new spacesuits by Virgin Galactic, so you can take a look at that. They are pretty stylish, I have to say. NASA was the other entity that had a press conference yesterday, unveiling some new spacesuits. These are a little bit different kind of spacesuit than what Virgin Galactic. Remember, I told you Virgin Galactic is a suborbital space tourism company. They're going to take paying passengers up to the edge of space. They're not going to enter orbit with Spaceship Two. It just breaches the boundary of space, and then it coasts back and glides to a runway and lands. So NASA obviously requires a little bit more heavy-duty spacesuit because those astronauts are going to the moon. They may be doing spacewalks outside of the spaceship in the vacuum of space, and also eventually, hopefully, on Mars. So these spacesuits are a little different than what Virgin Galactic unveiled yesterday. These suits are prototype designs that they unveiled. The astronauts will wear them on the moon in 2024, hopefully. And the new suits include features that increase the mobility of the astronauts. If you remember seeing any of the videos or footage from the Apollo missions and Neil Armstrong walking on the moon, of course, those spacesuits were very rigid, not very flexible at all. And you could see if they fell down while they were up there, they were going to be in big trouble. They weren't able to bend at the waist very well at all. So these new spacesuits from NASA have vastly increased the mobility for the astronauts. The suits have interchangeable parts, which can be changed out as conditions change. The spacesuits have a greater flexibility in regards to size for both men and women. This was strongly emphasized in the press conference about how these new spacesuits are going to be versatile for both men and women. So that's terrific, especially when NASA is touting that it's going to send the first woman to the moon. And so that's pretty exciting. The suits are in early development, so it's important to announce that. And NASA plans on beginning the testing on these suits on the International Space Station in 2023. So that's a little ways off, but we do have the debut of the basic design of these spacesuits. This is the new version of what Neil Armstrong wore on the moon, and there were two prototype suits that were revealed, a red, white, and blue version and a traditional orange color. The orange version will be the Orion Crew Survival System suit, which will be worn during liftoff and re-entry. The red, white, and blue version is the heavyweight, the heavy-duty Exploration Extravehicular Mobility Unit, which astronauts will wear on the lunar surface and outside of the spacecraft if they're doing a spacewalk. The suits can withstand temperatures ranging from negative 250 degrees Fahrenheit to 250 degrees Fahrenheit. That's pretty warm. So obviously these new spacesuits are going to work fine for Mars. Just gave the Mars weather report. You can tell at negative, what was that? There we go, negative 22 degrees Fahrenheit, right? these suits, being able to withstand negative 250 degrees Fahrenheit, are going to be just great. Just great, absolutely. Let's see, these new suits have no zippers or cables. Instead, the suits will feature seals and bearings. A newly designed visor is part of the new spacesuit for the helmets. And thanks to these new suits, astronauts can now lift their arms above their heads with new joint bearings, which allow astronauts to bend and rotate at the hips and bend their knees. Both versions of the new suits include life support systems in case the astronauts need to seek refuge in the suits, where they'll be able to survive for up to 6 days. So they can survive inside this spacesuit for up to 6 days. It's a fully contained autonomous system. The reason for that, NASA engineers, they've taken lessons learned from some of the past space shuttle tragedies which occurred. The spacesuits were plugged into the space shuttle, and they were dependent on the space shuttle for the power system and the atmospheric life support systems that were pumped into the suits from the shuttle. And in those tragedies that took place with the space shuttles, they decided to re-engineer these spacesuits so that they were completely independent of the spacecraft. They're autonomous from the spacecraft. They have their own life support system contained inside the spacesuit, so that's terrific. That is awesome. So in case of a breach of the spacecraft or a loss of pressure in the vehicle, the astronauts can survive up to 6 days. That's pretty amazing. Well, as I said, since these two came out yesterday with press conferences revealing their new spacesuits, also I thought we would cover some other spacesuits that have recently been revealed or unveiled. And the first one is Boeing, and in January of 2017, they unveiled their new spacesuit for the CST-100 Starliner that's going to transport NASA astronauts back and forth from the ground to the International Space Station and back. So that's pretty exciting. Again, that's part of the commercial crew program that NASA has. And these spacesuits obviously are designed for launch and low Earth orbit operations. And operations on the International Space Station. The spacesuits will give the astronauts functionality, comfort, and protection. The suit provided an enhanced pressurized mobility, special layers designed to keep astronauts cool. They have cooling layers built into the suit to help keep them cool. Touchscreen friendly gloves, non-slip breathable boots, built-in communication system for the crew and the ground comms, with a soft helmet, a polycarbonate visor, which will provide excellent peripheral vision for the astronauts. The suits are also about 10 pounds lighter than the previous versions worn by NASA, and the suits meet NASA's requirements for safety and functionality. The spacesuit acts as the emergency backup to the spacecraft's redundant life support systems. And I do want to mention that those boots I mentioned, the non-slip ones, Reebok helped design those boots. So that's pretty awesome. Reebok had a hand in that. Also, another player in this new space race is SpaceX and the Crew Dragon. As part of the commercial crew program, SpaceX is developing the Crew Dragon capsule, which will transport NASA astronauts back and forth between the International Space Station. And so SpaceX unveiled their new spacesuits on August 23rd, 2017. And the legendary Hollywood costume designer, Jose Fernandez, who's created movie costumes for the likes of Wonder Woman, Batman, Wolverine, Spider-Man, X-Man to design the SpaceX spacesuit. So that's terrific. This custom tailored suit is meant to provide a pressurized environment for all crew members aboard the Crew Dragon space capsule. The suit also routes communications and cooling systems to the astronauts aboard the crew capsule during regular flights. Additional features include a 3D printed spacesuit helmet, the touchscreen compatible gloves, a flame resistant outer layer, hearing protection during liftoff and re-entry, heel sliders securing the astronauts' feet to the footrests inside the Crew Dragon. Well, I think that pretty much covers everything that we needed to cover with these new spacesuits. Again, I thought with these two press conferences yesterday announcing or debuting the new spacesuits for Virgin Galactic and NASA that we would cover also the spacesuits for SpaceX and Boeing. That's pretty much going to cover it for now from Space Command. Hey, I want to thank you for joining us today. And if you like this video, click like. And if you want to subscribe and see more videos like this, click the subscribe button. All right, that's it for now. Thank you.